Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is number 228. It's our new format show for February 2022. I am SwissGuard, and I'm joined by my good friend DBqhams, and we have a very special episode tonight because it's Nintendo-centric. We don't have Game Logic here to rain on our parade, so we'll be missing Tao, though.
Game Logic would take offense to that. He's not anti-Nintendo. He just struggles with more of their recent stuff. How about that?
Speaking of recent stuff, they had a Nintendo Direct, and so there was a lot of. We're going to talk about the Direct before we roll into the games this week. A lot of announcements. My overall impression was not a lot of new stuff, a lot of remakes. It just felt very remake heavy to me.
There was a lot more there than I expected, though. Maybe it's just because I was coming in with low expectations, but there was a lot more of their calendar for the first half of the year than I expected.
So the rundown: Fire Emblem Warriors Three Hopes, so taking Fire Emblem Three Houses and doing their Dynasty Warriors style thing to it. Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp. So this is one of the remakes I was referring to. However, this is one of them that I was like, I'm really looking forward to because that was always a game that had been on my radar and I just never picked it up. Mostly because back in the day, I wasn't a huge, was that on the DS or I think
It
originally?
was on the
No,
GBA. The first
GBA.
two
Yeah,
were on the
that's why it's
GBA. Then there
Advance.
was 2 on the DS as well.
Okay. Um, so I just was never a big handheld gamer. So while it interested me, I never ended up picking it up. So I'm excited to be able to play it on the Switch.
Yeah, this is the one that was announced back in the fall. It was supposed to be coming in December. Way Forward is the one who's doing the remake. It's the remake of 1 and 2 on the GBA. And I didn't really play 1. 1 came out in 2001, but I played a lot of 2. And it's a great strategy game. Good characters, nice maps, and variety of units. So I'm definitely looking forward to this.
Another, I guess this would be one that surprised me. No Man's Sky is coming to the Switch.
Yeah, I was really surprised at that. I guess it is, we don't have confirmation one way or the other if it's cloud based or if it's, local. I would guess that it would actually be local. It seems possible given that it is procedurally generated. It's not a super, it's a 3D world, but it's not high intensity graphics. So I'll be curious on what the frame rate is, but at the same time, having it on the go would be great. Being able to play it handheld as you're kind of going around and mining resources and crafting or exploring space would be a lot of fun.
When's the last time you played No Man's Sky?
The last time I played No Man's Sky, I would say is when they came out with the PSVR patch, and I played it then. So I played it back in 18, I guess, was when I played it as a Pix Plays assignment. It was around the same time when my basement flooded, because I remember that. And I played it for Pix Plays, and then I picked it up again when it came out that next summer for Xbox, and it played it a little bit there, and then they came out with a patch for 4K for both PlayStation Pro 4 Pro and Xbox One X, and then they came out with the VR. So I've come back to it each time they've done a big update like that, but have never really sunk the amount of time that I did in since that Pix Plays back in 4 years ago almost.
Yeah, I think I probably would have played
You
it.
picked it up on PC, right?
Yeah, I think I probably played it though around the same time originally. And then every time we have one of these news stories, they're like, "Oh, look what they did to No Man's Sky. I like that game. I should play it again." And I never get to it. So I doubt I'll be picking it up on the Switch. For whatever reason, like I thought my kids might be into it a little bit too, but the onboarding in it is a little less forgiving than a Minecraft. So,
Yes, I mean they've definitely gotten a whole lot better with the onboarding through each of their different iterations, but still, it throws a lot at you. Yeah.
next game on the list. Can you explain to me Mario Strikers Battle League? It's like post-apocalyptic
Sh-
Mario Soccer or something.
Well, I mean, Mario Strikers on the Wii was kind of that battle soccer aspect. You had a little more combat like equipment, but you didn't have the equipment that they're talking about in this game, where the equipment actually makes a difference. It was just kind of part of their costume design. It was aesthetic, but it had the kind of super upcharge moves. It's kind of the, I don't want to call it the Mario Party of soccer, but it's it's kind of like the Mario baseballs, where there are power hits and things like that, or pitches, that it does have the ability to have multiple balls or a giant ball, or you're charging up a meteor that then is your superpower. But it plays out more or less like a soccer game. uh on the Wii it was okay. It wasn't, it was early in the Wii's life, probably 2007, I think. I have to go back and look, but I I'll be curious to see how this plays. It's we don't really have a lot of Mario sports games. Well, I guess, I mean, we have
They
Mario Tennis,
Tennis
we
and
have,
golf came out
and golf.
recently.
Yeah, tennis was 2019. Golf was last year. So it may, it's in that same type of family, but it could be, it could be deep. I mean, sometimes the Mario games surprise you, and sometimes, like they did with Mario Golf, it disappoints you a little bit as well.
Uh, the next up was they did a little bit of a trailer for Salmon Run mode on Splatoon 3. Still just a summer date, doesn't have like an official release yet.
See, and I've got to think. I mean, the Splatoon 2 came out in the summer. It was either June or July. We know that there's a couple of games already slated for June. So my guess is, I mean, my guess is really probably August, that
Yeah,
it's their
I
August
think
game.
I was gonna lean towards that. I want to say that's when like Fire Emblem came out in that July August time frame. There's always like there's something that's a semi like important franchise that hits that late summer. Um, it
Yep.
would make
Yeah,
sense.
that seems to be they usually have some type of August game um, before they get into their fall lineup.
My daughter's really excited about this one. She's like a S rank on Splatoon 2 and like still plays Splatoon 2 multiple times a
Fun.
week.
Neat. That's
Um,
that's nice to hear too.
so she there that crew is eager for the new one to come. Um, back to the remakes, Chrono Cross. Uh, I I have this still on PlayStation, um, the original PlayStation, and I it's been a long time since I played it. Obviously, I remember enjoying it. I remember loving the music, and my biggest memory of Chrono Cross is actually the soundtrack because I listened to it quite a bit, traveling back and forth from college. Um, on my CD player in my car. So that's then. But they're including like the text-based adventure Radical Dreamers edition.
Radical Dreamers. Yep. Yeah, which kind of works as a prequel to Chrono Cross. I mean, I've heard Retronauts talk about Radical Dreamers, but I don't really know much about it. I, I have Chrono Cross on Vita as like a PlayStation classic, uh, but I'll be interested to play it. I mean, I think in some ways, the dialogue around it has usually been that it didn't or doesn't live up to the heights of Chrono Trigger, but taken as its own, it's a solid PlayStation era RPG. Um, I remember it distinctly because it was one of the few 10 scores that GameSpot gave out at the time. So
Hmm.
this came, I think it might have been one of their first 3 tens, along with Ocarina of Time. So be interesting to see. I mean, I'd be curious to see what those how it plays. Where that price point is. If it because of the Radical Dreamers point, if it ends up being if it's $20 or if it ends up being $30, where Square ends up putting it. So
It's crazy. I was thinking, like, I wonder how much they're gonna charge for this as well when I was watching the show. Um, Next up, more remakes or re-releases is the Portal collection. Portal 1 and 2 are coming to the Switch. Uh, Portal 2 was one of the first games where I was like really trying to show one of my kids like, you know, this is what a like when a game design like this is a quality game design. This is, you know, there's good games and then there's like transcendent games almost. And I would put Portal 2 in that category. It's Portal and Portal 2. So he was excited to see this pop up on the playlist. Um, yeah, I probably won't pick it. We'll see. Maybe he'll use his allowance
yeah,
to get it. I've
right.
already
Like I
played it
don't I don't know that I'll pick it up either. I have it on 2 different systems already. I
yeah,
think it's great that it'll be here.
for people to experience that maybe haven't
Exactly.
experienced it
Yep.
yet. So a lot of that uh, in the direct.
Yeah, there really are. I think as you're going through this, we got a couple more of these remakes, remasters in here too.
Um, would you consider Nintendo Switch Sports a remake or just like the latest release? I guess
I
you would
think
say.
it's. I mean, I think it's the latest
Yeah.
release. In some ways, it does feel almost like a remake because of the sports that are included in it. It's not. I was talking about this with my son. Like, it doesn't feel like a whole new set of things, right? It's not. It's not a continuation of Wii Sports Resort, which had a whole lot of new stuff. It is kind of a remixing of the original Wii Sports and the Wii Sports Resort that it has. It's what does it have? We've got bowling and tennis
Um,
and the sword
Volleyball.
fighting aspect. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then it adds
badminton, soccer.
volleyball, badminton to it, and soccer. It sounds like as well. So yeah, I'll be really curious to see how this lands. Like, to what degree was Wii Sports such a phenomenon because it was new and a new way to play a game, and how much of it does it add any more depth to it than what the original Wii Sports had, or is it something that will be fun to play at parties but will kind of sit on a shelf for a lot of people?
Yeah. Um, I agree. I feel like Wii Sports was just so different. Um, and it was different in an accessible way, so it, captured a lot of non-gamers and really drove the Wii sales early. But I think a lot of people had Wii Sports and it just kind of collected dust after that first kind of hype wave. Um, I've never really gotten into after like the initial novelty of it. I never enjoyed like kind of those motion controls. Like I didn't like Skyward Sword. Um, about the only thing that really excited people or excited my family for like a motion control Nintendo game. If you remember Nintendo Land, which came out right at the beginning of the
Sure.
Wii U,
It
uh,
was a packet with the Wii U. Yep.
and the Zelda Land, and I think it was just because of the where my kids' ages were at that time, and just being able to run around and swing their swords
Sure.
was fun for
Yeah.
them. But
We in Nintendo Land we played a lot of the Luigi's Mansion Ghost kind of hunting one, and then the Mario chase one, whatever that was as well. But yeah, I Nintendo or Wii Sports. I over the years I've played a lot of it with bowling. Um, that was kind of always a go back to one. I mean, if you think about the original Wii Sports with golf, tennis, baseball, and bowling, really, tennis was fun for the first little while, but bowling seemed to. It was one of those where I could get my parents and grandparents to play. It was something that working at a library, that it was an easy kind of something to set up that people would play in a kind of event type of thing because it is very accessible. But I'm glad that boxing's not back, right? That was always just kind of a waggle fest. Uh, Baseball was kind of fun, like a home run derby, but it was never very deep. I'm interested to see how they implement the what do they have, the leg strap from
The Ring Fit adventure.
Ring Fit. Yep, that's to be able to kick in soccer, which sounds more like a penalty kick type of mini game. Um, and it also, like, some of these are not going to be on release. Like the Ring Fit
Golf.
soccer kicking thing comes later. Golf
Golf is
comes
later.
later. Yeah.
So we still might see a boxing waggle fest someday.
I mean, they've got
Redux.
lots to put in there, right? They could go back to. I played on Wii Sports Resort. I played a lot of the 3-point shooting with basketball. That was a really good implementation of Motion Plus because you could get kind of spin on the basketball. Table tennis was the same way, that you could put some English on it and spin on a ball. So there's lots of games that they could keep adding to it.
think
I think this is where I don't know what this product looks like. Like, how much of this is going to be free DLC that they keep adding to it? How much of it is going to be like a whatever they call it, a sports pass or something, where it is
oh,
is an expansion?
speaking of that, we got that coming up next with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. $30 booster course pass, I think it was.
24
24
$25.
$25.
24.99. Yep.
Okay. Oh yeah,
For
25.
5 waves of courses, I think.
Features 6 waves of
6
eight
waves. Okay.
courses. So 48 courses over the course of through 2023. It looks like that's a lot of
Which
content, I
That's a
guess.
lot of content, right? I think that this is a really good way of adding to Mario Kart. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe continues to sell like crazy. I think even though it breaks your speculation that we were going to get a Mario Kart 9, I think it is a really smart way of adding content to this, giving people more things to play. It takes effort and time to remaster these courses, but it's not like they have to develop all new courses or try to add in another whole game mode. That this
Yeah.
is simply just kind of expanding on that. But actually, I think when I saw the price, I was like, okay, I could pay $25 for this. And then I saw that it's in the expansion pass for Nintendo Online, and that to me feels like it adds value to that into that online pass. That
It still includes Animal Crossing's DLC. So now we
Yep.
get 2 big game DLCs plus the Sega and the N64. So
So yeah, at this point, that feels like there's more of a value there than it was when we had this discussion when it was announced and the price was announced. Like,
right.
now there feels like there's more to it for the extra money that you're paying.
Um, Next was Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
That was the
So
last one. Do we want to
last
cover some of the small stuff in between?
uh my article that I'm using as my crib notes is not have the
Okay.
small stuff.
Well, I'll go run through some of the small stuff then.
Yeah.
How about that? So we got what do we have?
Oh, the ones that there was another, yeah, Front Mission 1 and 2.
Yep,
Yeah.
Front Mission 1 and
That
2.
was another game back in the day that I've always had my eye on and I never played, so I'm kind of glad that it's coming. Again, the question will be price point, like how much is it worth playing that? And I wasn't familiar with the team that was remaking it. So we gotta wait.
I I have to see. I don't remember who that team was either. So, um, we also get a new Taiko Drum Master, or kind of almost, it seems like an expansion. Like, the gameplay looks very much the same. Taiko Drum Master Rhythm Festival coming this year with 70 songs, including songs from Undertale and Legend of Zelda. And to no surprise, it has a subscription for 500 extra songs. So it's a fun kind of rhythm game. It's out on PlayStation and Switch originally. Then it came to Apple Arcade. Just this past month or 2 months ago, it came out on Xbox Game Pass. Taiko Drum Master has been around for a long time in Japan, PlayStation 2 era. It's pretty satisfying. It's pretty fun. It's usually a lot of songs. I was kind of surprised that there's a new one. We also get a new SD Gundam, SD Gundam Battle Alliance sometime this year. We got, speaking of Apple Arcade, we get Lego Brawls, which is kind of a Super Smash Brothers brawler of Lego characters, platform brawler. It's been out on Apple Arcade for almost 2 years, maybe a year and a half, and now it's on Switch, which isn't really that surprising. There's been another number of other Apple Arcade games that came to Switch, like Grindstone, What the Golf, Neocab. Trying to remember a few others. We had a couple that came out as well. Another Lego one, the Lego puzzle game, came out on Switch as well that were previously on Apple Arcade. An announcement of Disney Speedstorm. So this is Mario Kart with
Smash
Disney
Brothers,
characters.
it's Mario Kart with Disney Kart. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But it's by Gameloft. And so Gameloft can produce very successful mobile games with a whole lot of additional systems and grind in them. So it's possible that this is a fundamentally sound game. I'll be curious to see how much of kind of the free-to-play mobile trappings it ends up having. But it also is going to be cross-platform. So it has cross-platform play coming out sometime this year as well. We get Demon Slayer, a Demon Slayer game for the Switch. There was a Demon Slayer. I think it might even be the same one that came out on Xbox and PlayStation last fall. 2 Point Campus, which was already previously announced, it's out on other platforms, coming out to Switch in May.
Wow, that one article was missing a lot.
Yeah. We get Zombie Army 4 from Rebellion, coming out in April. We get the Star Wars Force Unleashed remake, which is going to be the Wii version of it, which is, I guess, kind of makes sense in terms of the extra waggle that was in there. Having owned both, or I guess I still technically own both the Switch and the PlayStation 3 version. I'm kind of disappointed that should say that I'm potentially disappointed that it's the Switch version because of the graphical fidelity that the Switch version had, and compared to, and the physics pieces that were in the 360 and the PlayStation 3 one. Again, this is, Force Unleashed it's kind of it's a cool story of Vader's apprentice and kind of the force powers that he has, very God of War like in its combat with force powers.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I had it on PS3. Some other, I got a new article now. Cuphead, the Delicious Last Course paid DLC joins,
which is I think that's out on other things as well.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed, the Ezio collection. So I don't know. It's just so much stuff that they're like throwing in, and then you throw that in, and then you have so that's the 3 titles, I think, and then you got the Kingdom Hearts Integrum Masterpiece
Cloud version, right? Yes, yeah, so this came out actually today or yesterday. It was out this week. So
some other big Nintendo titles. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I don't know if we had a release date for that one. But
yes, I think it's the end of April. So the beginning of
it's March 25th now.
Oh, is it March 25th?
Yeah, because I remember seeing it. I was like, that's earlier than I thought it was.
Oh yeah, that is the end of April is the Wii Sports. So yes, it goes. You get Kirby, then you get Advance Wars, then Wii Sports, I don't. They didn't announce a May game, so it's potential that Wii Sports being at the end of April ends up being their May game, and then we get two releases in June with Mario Strikers and the Fire Emblem Muso game, and then whether it's July or August with Splatoon, and then we got the September date for Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
And then Breath of the Wild 2 potentially floating somewhere in holiday
Potentially,
potential.
I'll actually be if I'll be I'll be pleasantly surprised if Xenoblade Chronicles 3 hits September, or if they end up moving that back and it gets into an end of October date or something like that.
Um, Real fast, I want to make a comment on Kirby, because my kids are super psyched about that one. But watching the footage and seeing some like, okay, these are what you're going to be able to do. You suck in whatever, you get the extra powers, and I was like, so not only do they have like the classic Kirby, you can be Sword Kirby or Fireball Kirby or whatever, um, but you can like absorb like a vending machine, and then you have a superpower where you're shooting cans of juice at people, or you absorb a car and you can move, and so it felt very Mario Odyssey
Yeah, right.
watching
I
that.
think, and even when you saw that first trailer last year, the camera perspective, the open world, pseudo open world aspect of it did feel kind of Odyssey like. And you're right, like having the ability to kind of take over different items in the world does kind of carry along with that Cappy aspect from Odyssey.
Yeah, I can't decide whether it's lame or whether it's like using a good mechanic and just applying a new mechanic to a new place, the same mechanic to a new thing. But um,
I don't know that you're going to be able to tell that from a trailer, because I feel like the line of being creative or being lame for me is, to use your words, is is really when you get into a level, are you forced to be certain things in order to solve a puzzle or to get past a environmental obstacle, or can you complete a world using a variety of different, are there multiple ways, multiple paths through a level, or do you have to kind of take over the car in order to get to the next spot?
um, were there any other ones? I have one that I'm gonna save for
Okay.
a moment.
Well, I'm going to keep going on the remake ones then, I think. We got Klonoa and Klonoa 2 coming in July. So Klonoa came out on PlayStation 1, Klonoa 2 came out on PlayStation 2. Then they remade Klonoa, the original, on the Wii. They're 2D platformer games. I really enjoyed them on the GBA. There were spin-offs there, and the Wii version of the remake of the original is great. I'm glad that it'll, you know, they're really solid platformer games that usually get overshadowed. So it's kind of exciting to see them get back and get a little bit of love here. Um, we also got, going back to remakes and re-releases. Mother Earthbound Beginnings and Earthbound are being added to Nintendo Switch Online. Both were on the Virtual Console for the Wii, not the Wii U, and Earthbound was also on the 3DS Virtual Console. So there's that. Live Alive. So Live Alive was a SquareSoft JRPG back in the 90s that never came to the West, that was never localized. And so now it's being localized and coming out on the Switch in July. And so, as a fan of kind of 16-bit JRPGs, I'm interested in what this is. I don't really know a whole lot about it. I've only heard bits and pieces of it from kind of, games that never got a re-release, never got a Western release, but I'll be glad to have it here and a chance to kind of experience it. So
I think
I think I think we covered everything. I do want to.
MLB the Show.
Oh yeah, we knew MLB the Show was
Yeah.
coming because it, MLB and Sony Studios San Diego announced last week who their cover athlete was, and that we were getting a day and date Switch version of it. We get a little bit of gameplay. It looks, the fidelity looks what I expected on a Switch. I'm glad that it's coming to the Switch. It's a great, great, simulation baseball game. And for Nintendo to have a American baseball game, I'll say that since we know Swiss, you've got a solid baseball game from Japan. But I'll be really interested to see how the frame rate is here. But at the same time, it's a huge game, and it's great that it's going to be on all platforms.
And they did make a note during the direct to highlight cross progression and cross play.
Which is actually really key. Not so much in like a franchise mode, but because they're Diamond Dynasty, which is the baseball card collecting and playing game, which is a huge part of this, similar to Madden Ultimate Team or NBA 2K My Team, that the card collecting aspects and the quests and different series and events that they do around it is a big money generator for them, but it also gives a lot of life to the community. So having cross progression on that encourages people to buy multiple platforms, knowing that they can kind of keep the money that they invested within there as well. So that's good for people that play Diamond Dynasty.
There was a really quick, before we move on, there was a really quick message about Metroid Dread.
Yes,
Getting
yes.
that Dread mode or whatever they want to call it, one hit.
But also rookie mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the one hit mode for Dread mode, which sounds just
Brutal.
masochistic. Like,
Yeah.
wow. But great. I think the rookie mode is also welcomed because there's a lot of kind of dialogue in social media around the challenge of Metroid Dread and some of the bosses and the timing. The developers, Mercury Steam, have been out there saying the difficulty was deliberate, and I was surprised that I wasn't surprised about Dread mode because of all the conversations that Mercury Steam has had about they wanted to make a challenging game, but I was surprised that they came out with a rookie mode. But at the same time, I think that's a great move for Nintendo, in the same idea of Nabbit or Toadette or Funky Kong. Like, here's a way to give people who are familiar with these characters, whether it's through Super Smash Brothers or Mario Kart. Granted, Samus isn't in Mario Kart, but that they have familiarity with these properties, but maybe haven't found the games that accessible. And so I'll be interested to see what the rookie mode looks like and how is that a damage? Is that, is your parry window a little wider? Is that mainly for bosses and the Emmys versus kind of the traversal aspects? So I be curious. It's out now. I haven't had a chance to download it and try it, but it came out this week along with the direct. Anything else before you go into your game? Because I've got one more I want to hit on as well.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, we talked about it, which is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I'm excited for this in a way that I always get excited for a Xenoblade game and then never spend nearly enough time on it. I love the scope of Xenoblade games, the kind of giant open world, the premise and the setting. The fact that this game is a direct or ties into both Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, it will make it really interesting. You have the developers out there at Monolith talking about that they've dropped threads to this. They were planning kind of this story arc when they were working on Xenoblade Chronicles 2. The postlude that came with the remaster of Xenoblade Chronicles for the Switch last year had a post game, had kind of a smaller little epilogue that will tie into Xenoblade Chronicles 3. You get some characters that are back as well. So I say all this being very excited about it. It also really makes me wish that the rumors of a Switch Pro were real, and that as you're getting giant games like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Breath of the Wild 2, that we had something with a little more beefy processor to power it in.
I just get disappointed because it's the type of game that I'd be into. But I've never played them just because got other games, and I mean,
It's a
they're
huge
meaty
investment of
titles.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So and just hearing like, oh, they'll tie them all in. It's like, well, I obviously have to play Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 first. So
Now you gotta go back. Yeah. I do want to speculate because Game Logic is not here. I want to speculate that because this game is coming out, Monolith Studios game is coming out this fall, I'm gonna guess that Breath of the Wild 2 is a March game and not a November game.
hmm,
To put two big open world games, I mean, that said, Nintendo put two Pokemon games out in the span of 3 months. So I will be glad to be wrong.
yeah, I feel like I don't think Xenoblade Chronicles is as um, prestigious an intellectual property.
Oh, I would agree with you. Yes.
So and I remember like Smash Brothers came out like December 7th, whatever year that was.
Yep.
Um, so pushing it back to March. Um, if they do with the Switch Pro, I think I'd accept it.
Fair
That'd
enough,
be
right?
six
Yeah.
years, but we'll see. I'm not. I'm old enough where it's like if it gets delayed, it gets delayed. I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
Yes, I would agree with you. Yes. There's
Um,
plenty to play.
yes. Uh, so last thing that we'll talk about from the direct, triangle strategy. So this is from the same team from one of my favorite games of the Switch so far is Octopath Traveler. I'm using that really cool 2D kind or 2.5D type style, like old school style with kind of modern twist. But it's a it's a strategy RPG. So and they kind of announced during the direct that there'd be a demo available within a few hours. So I downloaded it today and I played it for a little bit right before the show started. So I've got
Did
a
you play the demo from last year?
did not no.
Okay. Just curious, like if the how much of the demo they did a very similar thing with Octopath Traveler, right? Where they
I
had
remember
an
playing
early demo and
yeah
then they took feedback from the community and now they've kind of provided a tweaked demo that's going to continue into the
into the
game, that your
story.
progress will continue.
And
Yep.
that might have been what I did with Octopath Traveler. I don't think I pulled the early version, but I do remember getting the save version and hitting the you know, 2 hours of gameplay or whatever it was, and you have to wait to buy the game. Um, but they're doing the same kind of setup now. So I started the story and I played through a battle, and it feels very Final Fantasy Tactics. So as it definitely skews kind of that direction rather than the Fire Emblem. And so far, you know, I liked what I saw. The characters they did you know right up front in the first battle they definitely give you a few different characters with different styles. So you have your magic user, healer, kind of like a support character, just a regular swordsman guy, and like a lance guy who's a melee but has a little bit more range. So it was good. They're just a you know a definitely like moving my people around and making sure that you know, you have to use your healer or you'll lose people. I could tell pretty quickly. Um, Using my support character was actually useful, and I felt like, okay, I will enhance my melee guy's abilities or whatever and make him more effective. So sometimes like I feel like in RPGs that kind of support like, oh, look, we can buff you or whatever. Uh, those characters, if it's not done right, they can be easily forgotten and overlooked. But I definitely wanted to use him in that fashion in this. And then just another little, so you can move and attack or attack then move, which was nice. You didn't feel locked in. And every time after you attack, you choose which direction your character faces because if you get hit in the back, it's an automatic critical hit, stuff like
That's
that.
a very Final Fantasy Tactics ogre.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then one little thing that I did notice and I liked, I noticed them doing it. I wasn't sure what it gave me, but you can do something where if you kind of have an enemy like your two characters right around the enemy, one character hits them, the other character will do like a like sucker punch type hit to come in. So that's a little bit of Fire Emblem feeling.
Yeah, where you had the support or
Yeah.
the assist piece. I think they also had that in. I don't remember if it was in original Tactics, but I know that it was in Tactics Advance,
Okay.
where you could, if you were boxing people in on two sides, that you could get kind of that combo.
I don't remember it on the PS1. That's the one I played. But uh, but when you did something like that, there'd be a pop-up. It was like +1 support attack or whatever they called it. And then there'd be something where it's like with my magic user, I positioned my area effect attack and I hit three characters at once, and it said, plus whatever you hit three characters on a turn. So I didn't know what it was doing. I thought I was maybe getting like bonus points on the attack, but at the end of the battle, they're called kudos apparently. So it gives a list of all like the little, hey, good job, you used tactics to win the battle, and you have a nice little bit of a rundown. So um, that helps my gamer ego. I imagine that you can probably collect those, and there'll be something that comes from it, if based on my experience playing games for multiple decades. But I don't care because I'm like, give myself a pat on the back for,
That's right. It's a little encouragement. Way to
yeah.
go! Congratulations, Swiss.
Um,
Well, I'm
uh,
glad you're enjoying it. That's good.
yeah, it's voice acted. It's they do their little rundown of like kind of what the world's like, and then you get into the very Octopath Traveler, in game moving the people around with the dialogue. But um, I'm not sure I'm going to continue it. I wanted to play it a little bit for the show tonight just because uh, I wanted to be able to talk to it, but I also know that I don't want to like play it and get to chapter 3 and then not buy the game for like 6 months and then not know where I was
Forget
at.
all about your systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But it didn't annoy me when I played it. It was like, okay, this feels good. This feels very a fusion of two games that I enjoyed. I really liked Final Fantasy Tactics back in the day, and I love Octopath Traveler. So, and it's a Square Enix game. We'll see.
I remember the knock on the demo from last year was it was really wordy, very talkative. Is this
I
demo
don't.
similar?
I would. I would say it's pretty talkative. Um, I probably spent the first 10 minutes or so, 20 minutes, going through just the dialogue before it set up the first battle. Um, but it's the beginning of the game, so it's hard to say how how that plays out. Like I don't know. We'll see if it goes down from there. The overworld felt very Fire Emblem Awakening to me, with the map and just kind of you're going to go
Moving
here.
from node to node type of
Yeah,
thing? Yeah. Which I guess is also the case in the overworld back in Final Fantasy Tactics, right? That you were moving kind of from node to node as well.
but um, this being our Switch extravaganza, um, we also have some more Switch new releases. You have 2 Switch new releases that you've
Yes,
played.
I've got one that came out today and one that came out last week. So the today one is Retro Bowl. So this is Red Star Studios, Red Star Games. Retro Bowl has been out on Android and iOS since 2000. Came out around the Super Bowl time back in 2000. It has continued to get things added to it. I picked it up when it released on Android back in the Super Bowl time of 2020, and at that time I joined the Reddit community for it, which had 970 people. And now the Reddit community has like 50,000. It's kind of blown up over the last year on TikTok for, this is my old man piece for some reason that's on TikTok. But it has been very popular on TikTok, and it's I have impressed my son's friends as I've played Retro Bowl, and they're like, "Oh, you know about that game? Let me tell you about my 130 seasons that I've played in this." So I think that's the other piece of it is I have talked about this on the show. I've talked about it elsewhere. It is it's Tecmo Bowl with touchscreen controls, and now that it's on the Switch, if you take the Joy-Cons off and just use the tablet, it plays just like a mobile version, but it also uses the control pads, so you can leave auto run on, and then you're only moving kind of up and down, or you can take that off, and then you have to, push forward on the stick, surprisingly, like you would in a Tecmo Bowl, in a video game. But it has all the depth of the whole game. I mean, it is, you start off, you're playing only offense. You have, you hit a button for a running play or tap the screen for a running play. It gives you a play automatically. It's not like Tecmo Bowl where you choose 4 or 6, or is it 8 in Super Tecmo Bowl, but something like that you get multiple selections. Here you're basically given kind of an overlay of what the pass routes are, and where that run is going to go. And so if you click the button to do a run, you start the run, or you can start dragging on the left stick to aim where you're going to pass. And so that works well. You have a dive, you have a juke move, which I haven't played enough of it to know how effective it is, because the juke move there's not really a solid juke move in the touchscreen versions of it. One of the other things that they've added to it is that there's now kickoffs, that you can do a kick return, where before you just it automated all that and you were just playing offense. Now you're also doing kick returns, and it's a side-to-side view. Having the kick returns plays out very much like the original Tecmo Bowl. Right? You get kick comes, you catch it in the end zone, you try to run out, you're all those things. But it's the depth of this game of managing a salary cap. Players level up. They have stat abilities that you can level up. You draft. You can trade somebody for draft picks. You can't trade somebody for other players. You hire defensive and offensive coordinators. You can hire free agents. You have to upgrade your stadium. And in the mobile version, it's free to play for like the first 5 games, and then you unlock it all with a 99-cent purchase. But then you can buy tokens, coins in the game, which you use to either upgrade your facilities or buy free agents or hire more higher star rated coordinators, coaches. And that is, there's no paid mechanics to this. It is a one purchase and done. Right now it's in kind of the launch sale, which is $2.99 American, and the normal price is $4.99. And even at that,
Wait,
there's
where'd you see
a
that?
lot of game there.
I'm looking at the webpage right now and it says $4.99. I guess I missed
Oh,
the
so
sale.
I must have, yeah, the sale must have been a pre-release sale then. So I picked it
Ah,
up the beginning of the week, and it was $2.99. So yes, now it's $4.99. But I will say that even at $4.99, there's a lot of game here. That it's a really enjoyable football game. That the ability to, after each season, depending on how you did, you can get offers from other teams and go take on another franchise. So part of the reason that I've played multiple different files of 40 years or more is that, I'll stick with a franchise for a while and then swap over to the other conference and take a team that barely won anything and come back and, kind of bounce around over time.
You're like the
So
Theo Epstein of Retro Bowl.
that's, yes, have led many a team to the Super Bowl. So there's not really a good American football game on Switch. There's no Madden. There's a few kind of mobile game ports, and technically this is a mobile game port, but this is a really robust arcadey kind of classic 8-bit, but has depth there as well. So I think it's a great sports game, period. And having that Switch, when we get our Switch stats at the end of this year, I will not be surprised if this ends up very high on my hours played list.
But I mean, and it's right there at a price point too. Like you probably have $4.99 in like gold
In
coins.
coins, right?
Yeah.
Or, what else? For $5, that's
So it's hard to beat.
There's a lot of gameplay there. Yes. Yep. The other Switch game that I played through because it's a relatively short kind of point and click adventure is Land of Screens. It's a small indie game, came out last week, also on PC and Switch. I had found it on Steam in one of their game demo jams from last year. Love the art style. It's kind of pastel-y, kind of flat storybook character aspects to it in terms of the character designs, but it really just tells a small story about a character who had a breakup, and she is stressed by all the social media aspects of it and of people commenting on her status and the breakup. And you go through a couple of different scenarios where you're meeting up with some high school friends, and at a party, you are going to a family reunion, you're going to a work conference, and you're going on a hike. And part of it is for a game called Land of Screens, part of it, the gameplay aspect is dialogue, that you are piecing things together in terms of the goal of each of those different stages is to get everybody to to solve their problems. In the family reunion one, you're trying to get people together to play a couple different games or to get them off their screens, so that everybody in each scenario is on social media or on their tablets or on their Switch equivalents, which is very funny, playing a game about getting off your Switch and on my Switch. So, but it's a nice little story. It has some heartfelt moments. The characters are not super deep, but it's a nice reminder of like the human connection matters. And it's a game that feels relevant in this period of time, in terms of as I sit with my family in the living room and all of us are on different screens doing our own thing, that it's a nice reminder of the value of spending time together, whether that's, outside, whether it's around a table, whether that's, however you end up doing that with family and friends, that there's value in presence. So it's, again, relatively short game, but also a relatively cheap game. I think $5.99, $4.99, somewhere in there as well. So well worth it. I'm glad that I picked it up, and I'm glad that I played it on Switch versus kind of sitting at the PC to do that as well.
Cool. It's $5.39 on sale right now. It looks
like $5.39. So it's probably $5.99 with like a 10% discount or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Neat. Sounds. Did they ever like try to break the fourth wall and be like, embrace, other than just that reference with people playing?
No, there's not any kind of reference to that you're playing a game about stopping playing games. No.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the one thing that as much as I like it, I wish that there's no fail state to it. Like you just keep talking to people until you put the puzzles together, and it's very linear. There's only one way to solve that. There's not you can't you can't fix somebody's, pair people together in multiple different ways. That in each stage there's really only one solution to go through it. And I think that given the scope of the game and given the small team, given the price point, it's understandable, but it would have been a much more enjoyable game experience if there were kind of that ability of multiple paths. Like, it would, given the shortness of it, it also would
Yeah,
warrant multiple playthroughs
it
if
does.
you could.
It doesn't
Yeah,
inhibit you being like, I'm not gonna play this again. It's too
yeah,
long. Yeah.
pretty much like, yeah. But now that because it is only very linear, there's not much of a reason to go back to it either. Like, I got that experience. Is it kind of the equivalent of going to see a movie, having a nice little, you know, heartfelt drama
Mhm.
at $5, $6, and for a couple hours of entertainment. It's kind of in that same vein. But yes, it could have been deeper, it could have been more, but I think it achieves the scope that it was trying for. It just is a small scope.
All right. So I played another Switch game, Layton's Mystery Journey, Catriel and the Millionaires Conspiracy Deluxe Edition. I guess that was originally a DS or 3DS game.
Was it a 3DS game? Okay.
Um, so I actually bought this for my wife for Christmas as a Christmas gift. Because back in uh, back in the day we like to play some of the Leighton games together, kind of like just so it's kind of just a thing. Um, so we started this one last week. Uh, I I'm not sure when they introduced Catriel. Like we haven't played every Leighton game, so I'm not like super up on the lore. But I think she's Leighton's daughter or something. But she's starting her business as the Leighton Detective Agency in London. So the setting's kind of neat. They have I really like just the aesthetics of the design for the environments. And Catriel, this is my first time playing with her, but um, they do a good job telling the story. Like I like the it's I don't even know how to describe their sense of humor in the games. Like it has like a good light sense of humor. Um, and they like really lean into the various British accents. I would say. So like the guys from Scotland Yard have very like strong Cockney accents, and Catriel is very proper. Um, and so all that's great. Um, Obviously, there's a little bit more cutscene action than maybe I remember playing like on the Diabolical Box back in the day on the 3DS or DS or whatever it was.
Yeah, DS, because that
DS,
was
I
like the
think.
second game, right? They had
Yeah.
three on the DS.
So uh, that's nice to see. Kind of like I feel like I jumped in time a little bit farther than I. But what's been a little bit disappointing are the puzzles, which is probably something you don't want to say about a Layton game. Uh, we haven't gotten very far yet. Um, because we play this game together, it tends to be a game that is like after the kids go to bed and it's right before we go to bed. So it's like play a little bit of the story and play a puzzle or two, and then um, turn it off. But so far they've just been a little bit underwhelming. Um, like one of the first puzzles was the towers of Hanoi, kind of classic. Um, if you're, it's like you have like three um, rods and you have the discs, and it's not rods and discs. It's like floors in a house, but it's literally the Tower of Hanoi problem. So it's okay. I may have even remembered that way back on the old Layton games, but it's kind of like a well-known puzzle. And there was one that was like a riddle, But I mean, I guess some of the Layton games do riddles, but just so far I haven't felt like the excitement with the puzzles that I did on the older Layton games. And I don't know if it's just um, maybe it's because I played some of the older Layton games, so it doesn't. It's just more the same. But I kind of wish the puzzles were a little bit more robust. We shall see. It is still very early. There will still be a lot of puzzles yet to experience, and I do plan to. I mean, we do plan to keep playing it. So
Nice, fun. That's nice to play together too.
yeah.
Yep. All right, so my final game here is Pop Slinger. Pop Slinger came out at the end of January. I saw it up on kind of the coming soon list. It is by Funky Can Games, a small indie developer. And the reason I, kind of started on my own playlist is the style of it. It just oozes style. I as somebody who grew up in the 80s and 90s, it is very evocative of that style. There is, it says it's inspired by 90s kind of anime. It's got some of that, but not in like a real heavy anime way. It's very cartoony. Um, but the filters on it, the character designs, it's really the colors, the color palette that they use. There's this kind of like whitewash, kind of not whitewash, but some type of like cloudy filter on it that gives it kind of a
Gives it a
washed out.
very CRT TV.
Oh yeah, there's lots of CRT TV pieces in there. I love there are VCR tracking lines that come in to play in some of the cutscenes or in the loading screens that you get the kind of static bars that would come with VCR tracking and recordings of playing back a VCR tape. It does all that really well. I love the soundtrack. The soundtrack's got kind of a Japanese kind of pop 90s vibe to it. I actually picked it up on Bandcamp. It's a fun soundtrack. I just wish the gameplay was better. I think
Uh,
that's the thing that challenges me. Like it is it's so great to look at. I just want it to be more fun to play. And the gameplay is actually fun when it works. Like conceptually, the gameplay is really fun. That you have soda guns. You are pop, and you're slinging pop. You're slinging soda. And so you have like an orange pop gun, which is kind of just a standard blaster. You have a kind of cherry or strawberry shotgun, which has a little spread to it of 3 shots. And you have a cola cannon, which is like a bazooka, which is a steady stream. You end up with a 4th gun as well. They are that is kind of fun. The enemies have there's a rhythm game aspect to it or a puzzle game aspect to it where if you chain together the right colors, you'll get bonuses that if you get 4 of one color and then 4 of another color, your spirit guide that's along with you in this story can come out as a duplicate shadow behind you, and you can have like 2 shots to everything, or you can put it down as a turret, or it can give you a shield, or it can give you healing. And healing is really important because there's not any health packs to pick up as you go through a level. It has a very it feels inspired by 90s arcade games, both in the good way and in the quarter frustrating way as well. So that combo system is really creative. It makes you kind of pick and choose. You can't just kind of run and gun. I mean, you can, but you lose some of those perks or those skill abilities because not always are the 4 yellow enemies going to be the first 4 enemies, or you'll see 2 yellows and then you'll see a red and a yellow and another red and a yellow. And if you hit the red, your combo gets deleted. Or if you take a hit, your combo gets deleted. And so it also becomes an incredibly punishing game because the camera is very zoomed in, that you have enemies coming from lots of different sides, which makes it, potentially exciting and kind of a bullet hell action kind of side-scrolling shooter type of way. But because the camera is so zoomed in, and it does so, it does so to kind of highlight the character dynamics. There is a dodge button, but there's a kind of a recovery time to the dodge button, so you can't just spam it to get out of the way. And in that zoomed in camera, it means that that there's a lot of enemies out in the board that you see. Kind of the camera zooms out, you see a bunch of spawn points, and then it zooms back into you. And so that there's enemies coming, but you have no idea which way they're coming from. And that same thing is true on a boss, that the boss is there, but there's no indicator of where the boss is until the boss starts to attack. And so it is difficult to get out of the way. Or if you're trying to work on one of those combos, it's difficult to keep those combos because you don't know where those enemies are coming from. That I think
So
if it was, go ahead, yeah.
I haven't heard you use the word unfair. Is that
Um,
too strong?
I mean, it's I don't know that it's unfair because the enemies are there. It's not like they just suddenly spawn in from out of screen. They're on the board. You just can't see them. Like if you could pull the camera back, it could be you could actually plan out some of this a little bit more. I think it does make it. The boss battles were, I spent 45 minutes on one boss. Like on the first 3 bosses, I
Hmm.
got a little better, but the first boss I spent 45 minutes on because I couldn't see where it was coming from and trying to time those attacks. It was very frustrating. Unfun, I think, is more the word than I would use than unfair. Like, it doesn't feel cheap in like a, Super Nintendo NES type of Medusa head swinging at you type of Castlevania way. It just feels. Uh, I think the unfair part comes when. So once, as you progress through the game, the enemies get shields that you have to use. They have a color determined shields that you have to use a certain gun to break the shield before you can start damaging them, which is a nice mechanic. But because the camera is so zoomed in, that if you use the wrong color, then the enemy charges at you because you've made it aggressive, and you don't necessarily have a lot of landscape to get away from it. And that's when it feels like it becomes unfair, that you're boxed in by a lot of different things, that I've seen people play it online. I've seen people struggle with it the same way that I have. And I've seen people kind of really get the timing down. Like, if it's going for the quarter munching aspect of an early 90s arcade, it succeeds in that because you're only getting so far and you keep dying. You do have the ability to basically keep putting quarters in and keep continuing from checkpoints, which is nice, but it doesn't make it enjoyable. And I think that that's if there's a patch to it, if there's some type of, there's a little bit of hitbox issues, that it feels like I'm not hitting an enemy in my line of, in my vertical or horizontal aiming, but the enemy ends up hitting me in that attack. And so it it's a really cool idea by a small team. I just think it's not nearly as accessible as the graphic style makes it seem. How about that?
Hmm.
So I'm disappointed by it. I will probably come back to it here and there, but truthfully, I'll probably listen to the soundtrack more than I'll play the game. If if it doesn't get some type of patch that changes the camera, it really makes it difficult.
All right. You got any other games that you wanted to throw in there at the last minute?
Since I'm not going to be here next week, I will throw out one more Switch game to keep us on the Switch extravaganza. So, a game that came out today is Welcome to Elk, and I've started playing it. Welcome to Elk is a cartoony narrative adventure game. There's not much to it. There's a few puzzles here and there. It tells a story. It tells a number of little vignettes that they're all based on this one kind of fishing island. They're true stories. that they've developed into a video game. It's been out on Steam since last year. I played it in the summer of 2020. It was in the Xbox E3 demos, and I played a demo of it then, and kind of have flagged it since then as something to come back to. And so now that it came out on Switch, I've picked it up and am making my way through it. Again, it's a small narrative game, but uh, there's more to it than Land of Screens. So I'm enjoying it. It feels very kind of 90s Nickelodeon in its art style, but it deals with some heavy topics. And it's kind of, I appreciate the fact that it's taking real people's stories and putting them into a gameplay, rather than a novel or a small novella. It's putting them into a game to kind of experience and identify with.
Hmm. So, all right. So that I guess that'll end our Switch extravaganza show with like zero Nintendo Prime properties. Um,
Right? Yep.
um, but next week the Pix Plays is to choose a Sony first party title. And if you the impetus was the fact that they're being ported to PC now, and so you have more opportunities. If you don't do a Sony game, find something similar to like an SIE title and play that. Uh, Neither of us will be on that show. It will be Game Logic hosting with Townmaster99, but Townmaster, at least in the agenda, has said he is going to play Horizon Zero Dawn for PC. So,
Well, we do know that he purchased it.
okay.
So
So then the odds are good. So this will be probably a first for for the E2KG podcast, Townmaster99 playing a Sony title. It's been, I think, probably since the PlayStation 2 era, he said. It's the
I
last time
think,
he
yeah, I
had a
don't think he
Sony
had a
console.
PlayStation 3. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. And Game Logic, I don't know if he will change his mind before then, but has Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection on his agenda.
Yeah, he played a little bit of that last week and talked about it. So I'm guessing he's still chipping away at it.
All right. For DBqhams, I'm SwissGuard. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Um, have fun gaming. Take it easy. Bye.